Admiral Doan Park stood at the viewing window of his ship and watched the massive space station grow larger. The Concord Capital Station was the biggest structure ever built. It floated in empty space between 12 different star systems. Millions of aliens lived there. Thousands of ships came and went every day. And somewhere inside, the leaders of the galaxy were waiting to hear humanity's request. Doan had spent 30 years in the Navy. He had gray hair now and deep lines on his face. But his eyes were still sharp, and his uniform was perfect. Today was important. Today, humanity would ask for full membership in the Galactic Concord. Earth had been part of the Concord for 60 years, but humans were still considered children. They had observer status only. They could watch meetings, but not vote. They could trade, but paid higher taxes than everyone else. They followed every rule, contributed medical technology that saved billions of lives, and never started a single conflict. Today, Doan hoped that would change. Captain Unicong walked up beside him. She was younger, with black hair tied back tightly. She commanded the escort ships protecting the diplomatic shuttle. 200 civilians were on that shuttle. Families, children, scientists, artists, all coming to show that humanity was peaceful and cultured. "The station has cleared us for docking," Una said. Doan nodded slowly. "Let us hope they listen this time." They did not listen. The great assembly hall was enormous. Representatives from 12 species sat in curved rows that rose up toward a distant ceiling. Lights floated in the air. Screens showed translations in hundreds of languages. And at the center, on a raised platform, stood High Arbiter Velos. Velos was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His species, the Calori, had ruled the Concord for 10,000 years. He looked down at the human delegation like a teacher looking at a small insect. Doan made his speech. He spoke about humanity's contributions. He mentioned the disease cures they had shared freely. He talked about 60 years of peace. He asked politely and formally for equal membership. When he finished, silence filled the hall. Then Velos laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was the laugh of someone who found a request so stupid that it was funny. Other species began laughing too. The sound echoed through the massive chamber. "You ask for equality?" Velos said. His voice was cold and sharp. "You have existed for a moment. Your species crawled out of mud while we were building empires. You are aggressive vermin. Biological accidents. The fact that we allow you to exist near us is a gift you do not deserve." Doan felt his hands tighten behind his back, but he kept his face calm. He had been insulted before. He could survive words. Then Warlord Grath stood up. The Kronth were huge. They had thick bodies, rough skin like stone, and small red eyes. They were warriors. Fighting was their culture, their religion, their purpose. Grath was their greatest leader. He had conquered a dozen worlds before joining the Concord. Grath walked down from his seat. He moved slowly, each step heavy and loud. He stopped in front of Captain Unicong, and he spat at her feet. "Oh, go home, little human," he growled. "Before we teach you what happens to weak things in this galaxy." The assembly laughed again. Some clapped. Una did not move. Her face was stone, but Dohan could see her hands shaking slightly. Ambassador Tira, from the Valari species, stood up. She was small and delicate, with silver skin and large dark eyes. Her voice was soft but clear. "This is not appropriate," she said. "Humanity has done nothing wrong. They deserve respect, not mockery." Velos waved one of his forehands dismissively. "Sit down, Tira. The Valari are soft. That is why your opinion does not matter." Tira sat down slowly. She looked at Dohan with sad eyes. She had tried. The human delegation left. They walked through long corridors back to their ships. Nobody spoke. There was nothing to say. 60 years of peace and contribution had meant nothing. They were still vermin to the galaxy as the human ships undocked and began flying away from the station. Lieutenant Hannah Cho noticed something on her scanner. "Admiral," she said quietly, "there are Kronth warships following us. Doan turned to look at the screen. 6 Kronth vessels had left the station. They were moving fast, spreading out to surround the human convoy. "This is Kronth Warlord Grath," a voice crackled over the communication system. "You will stop your ships and prepare to be boarded." "On what authority?" Doan demanded. Grath laughed. "On the authority of strength, little human. You have something we want. Your medical technology. Your scientists. And we will take them." Doan looked at Yuna. They both knew the truth. The human escort ships were small. The Kronth warships were massive. This was not a fight they could win. Concord Station. "This is Admiral Doan Park." He broadcast on the open channel. "We are under attack by Kronth forces. We request immediate assistance." Silence. Then Velas's voice came through, calm and bored. "The Concord does not interfere in minor disputes. Perhaps the Kronth will teach you the lesson you need to learn." The first Kronth weapon hit Yuna's escort ship. The explosion was bright and terrible. Then another hit. 2 ships gone in seconds. Dozens of human sailors dead. The Kronth boarded the diplomatic shuttle. Doan watched on his screen as soldiers dragged screaming civilians into prisoner transports. He saw families torn apart. He saw children crying and reaching for their parents. He could do nothing. Lieutenant Hannah Chol was on the shuttle when it was captured, but she was smart and quick. While the Kronth were busy with other prisoners, she crawled into a damaged escape pod. The pod was barely working. It had no weapons, little air, and a broken engine. But it had a recording device. Hannah had recorded everything. The insults in the assembly hall. The laughter. The spit at Yuna's feet. Velos calling humans vermin. And now, the screams of children being taken. The cries of mothers being separated from their families. The Kronth soldiers laughing as they hurt innocent people. Her tiny pod drifted away in the debris. The Kronth did not notice her. They were too busy celebrating their easy victory. 3 weeks later, Hannah's pod was found by a human rescue ship. Admiral Doan Park stood before Earth's United Council. The chamber was silent. Every leader on the planet was watching. Doan said nothing. He simply played Hannah's recordings. For 40 minutes they watched. They heard the laughter. They saw the contempt. They watched children scream and reach for their parents as Kronth soldiers dragged them away. They heard Velos say that humans deserved no help. When the recording ended, no one spoke for a long time. Then the vote was taken. It was unanimous. No declaration of war was sent. No angry message was broadcast. Earth simply went quiet. All human traders returned home. All human ships left foreign stations. Communications with the Concord stopped completely. The galaxy thought humanity was crying in the corner. It's defeated and broken. They were wrong. 3 months passed. The galaxy noticed something strange. Humanity had disappeared. Human traders no longer came to space stations. Human scientists stopped attending conferences. Human diplomats recalled themselves from every posting. Communication channels that had been open for 60 years suddenly went silent. When other species tried to contact Earth, they received only automated messages saying the system was unavailable at first. The Galactic Concord was amused. "They are sulking, High Arbiter," Velos said during a council meeting. "Like children who did not get what they wanted. They will come back eventually, begging for our forgiveness." The other species agreed. Humans were young. Humans were weak. Humans had learned their place. Warlord Grath was especially pleased. On his homeworld, he built a great arena. Every week, he forced his human prisoners to fight for entertainment. The crowds cheered as humans struggled against impossible odds. When they fell, Grath laughed loudest of all. The 47 children captured from the diplomatic shuttle were sent to labor camps on a frozen moon. They worked in mines, digging for valuable minerals. Many of them were too young to lift the tools. The guards did not care. When children fell from exhaustion, they were beaten until they stood again. Grath broadcast these scenes across his empire. He wanted everyone to see what happened to species who thought they were equal to the Kronth. He wanted the galaxy to know that humans were nothing but slaves now. What Grath did not know was that every broadcast was being recorded on Earth. The silence was not emptiness. It was focus. Dr. Minho Beek had spent 20 years as a peaceful researcher. He had developed medicines that cured diseases. He had created technologies that helped crops grow on dying worlds. He was a gentleman who believed science should help people. Now he led 2,000 scientists in a facility buried deep under a mountain. For 60 years, humanity had limited its weapons research. They wanted peace. They wanted to show the galaxy that humans could be trusted. They built only defensive systems, small shields, basic weapons that were worse than what other species had. That policy ended on the day the council voted. Everything is unlocked, the council told Minho. Everything. We want you to build weapons that will make the galaxy never forget what happens when you hurt our people. Minho looked at the files they gave him. Theories that had been forbidden. Designs that had been locked away. Ideas so terrible that peaceful humanity had refused to explore them. He got to work. Deep in space, far from any star, humanity built shipyards that no one could find. New vessels took shape. They were not like old human ships. They were faster, quieter, deadlier. Their hulls were painted black. They had no markings, no flags, no identification. The first ship completed was named Silent Wrath. Captain Unikong was given command. She had not spoken much since the attack. The spit on her boots had dried long ago, but she still remembered the feeling. She remembered the laughter. She remembered watching children dragged away while she could do nothing. Now she trained her crew 16 hours a day. They practiced maneuvers that other species said were impossible. They learned to appear from nowhere and vanish before anyone could respond. They became ghosts. General Tai Wuxin commanded the ground forces. He was a large man with a shaved head and a scar across his chin from an old training accident. He had never seen real combat. Humanity had been at peace for centuries. That was about to change. Tai Wu's soldiers, trained in secret bases scattered across Earth's solar system, they practiced fighting in every environment. Frozen moons, burning deserts, zero gravity, underwater. They learned to move without being seen, to strike without warning, to disappear before the enemy understood what happened. But the most important work was done. By Lieutenant Hannah Cho, after her rescue, Hannah was offered rest. She refused. Instead, she joined Earth's intelligence service. Her job was simple. Human agents were still scattered across the galaxy. Traders who had not returned home, scientists working in foreign labs, workers on distant stations. They became Hannah's eyes and ears. Everyday reports came in. Locations of Kronth military bases, patrol routes of their warships, schedules of their supply convoys, maps of every labor camp where human prisoners suffered. Hannah organized everything into a massive database. She knew where every Kronth soldier was stationed. She knew the names of every guard who had beaten a human prisoner. She knew exactly where the 47 children were being held. She also knew something else. She knew which species had laughed in the assembly hall and which had stayed silent. She knew who had applauded when Grath spat at Yuna's feet and who had looked away in shame. Every reaction had been recorded. Every name had been noted. Ambassador Terra of the Valari could not sleep well anymore. She kept thinking about that day in the assembly hall. She had tried to speak up. She had tried to defend the humans, but she had been silenced, and she had sat down. Now humans were gone, and terrible stories came from Kronth space. Stories of prisoners worked to death. Stories of children in mines. Stories that made her silver skin turn pale. She did something dangerous. She used secret channels to contact human agents still hiding in the galaxy. "I want to help," she said. "Please tell me what I can do." The agent was silent for a long moment. Then a familiar voice came through. It was Hannah Cho. "You spoke up when no one else did," Hannah said. "We remember that. Stay quiet for now. When the time comes, we will need friends." "Be ready," Tira agreed. She did not know what was coming, but she knew it would be significant. High Arbiter Velos grew tired of waiting for humanity to apologize. He called a special session of the Concord. "Humanity's silence is an insult," he declared. They withdraw from galactic society without permission. They refuse to answer communications. This is unacceptable behavior from an observer species, the Council agreed. They voted to strip humanity of observer status. They voted to impose sanctions. They voted to send a military force to Earth to demand submission. Velos smiled as the votes were counted. He would teach these humans their place. Behind him, floating near the ceiling, a small cleaning drone recorded every word. It was a human-made drone purchased years ago and forgotten. No one noticed the tiny red light indicating its camera was active. That night, the recording was sent to Earth. Admiral Doan Park watched it in his office. His face showed no emotion. When it ended, he called a meeting with his commanders. They plan to attack in 3 months, he told them. They will send a fleet to demand our surrender. Unikong looked at him. What are your orders, Admiral? Doan was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment. We will not wait 3 months, he said. We will go to them. And when we are done, the galaxy will understand that they should never have touched our children. The commanders nodded. Around Earth, hidden shipyards increased their work. Secret bases finished their training. Scientists completed their final tests. 3 months of silence was ending. The storm was about to break, at exactly midnight Earth Standard Time. The galaxy learned what human silence really meant. Kronth Admiral Gorak was sleeping on his command station. When alarms woke him, he stumbled to the control room, still half asleep, expecting some minor problem. What he saw made his blood freeze. Ships were appearing everywhere. Black ships with no markings. Ships that had not been there 1 second ago. They materialized out of empty space like ghosts becoming solid. Where did they come from? Gorak screamed. Why did our sensors not detect them? No one could answer. The sensors showed nothing wrong. These ships simply did not exist according to Kronth technology. But they were very real. The first weapons fired before Gorak could give any order. His station's shields flickered and died. Power went out across entire sections. Communication systems failed. Then human soldiers boarded the station. Gorak had fought many species in his long career. He knew how different aliens moved, how they attacked, how they died. Humans, he thought, were soft and weak. They should be easy targets. He was wrong. Human soldiers moved like shadows. They did not fight fairly. They did not announce themselves. They appeared from vents, from dark corners, from behind doors. Their weapons made no sound. Kronth's soldiers fell without knowing what killed them. In 15 minutes, Gorak's entire security force was eliminated. He was dragged to the control room and forced to his knees. A human woman stood before him. She had black hair tied back tightly and eyes that held nothing but cold fury. I am Captain Unikong, she said. You will tell me where the prisoners are kept. All of them. Every camp. Every location. Gorak spat at her feet just as Warlord Grath had done months ago. Una did not react. She simply nodded to one of her soldiers. A screen appeared, showing a list of every Kronth military installation in the Empire. Red marks covered the map. Dozens of targets. We already know, Una said. We just wanted to see if you would tell the truth. You chose to insult me again? Remember that when you watch what happens next? She walked away. Gorak was left alive, hands bound, forced to watch helplessly as humans took complete control of his station. Across Kronth space, the same scene repeated. 200 targets hit at the same moment. Military bases, weapon factories, command centers, shield generators, communication hubs. Every critical piece of Kronth military power was attacked simultaneously. But the humans were not there to destroy everything. They were there for their people. The frozen moon where 47 children worked in mines was called Krath 7. It was heavily guarded. Thousands of Kronth soldiers protected it. High walls surrounded the camps. Defense turrets watched the skies. None of it mattered. Human transports appeared directly inside the walls, bypassing all external defenses. Soldiers poured out before the guards could respond. They moved with perfect coordination, each team knowing exactly where to go. The children were found in underground tunnels. They were thin and dirty. Their hands were covered in cuts from the mining tools. Many of them could barely walk. Some did not recognize what was happening. They had been prisoners for 6 months. They had started to forget what safety felt like. A human soldier knelt before a small boy who was crying in the corner. She removed her helmet so he could see her face. "It is okay," she said softly. "We are here. We are taking you home." The boy stared at her for a long moment. Then he ran into her arms and would not let go. Captain Unikong personally led the team that found the children. When she walked into the tunnels and saw their condition, she had to stop and close her eyes for a moment. She breathed deeply. She pushed her emotions down. There would be time for grief later. Now is time for action. She spoke to her team quietly. "Find every guard who worked in these mines. Every single one. I want their faces recorded and matched to our database." Her soldiers nodded. They understood. Those guards would be remembered. As the children were carried to transports, Una found the camp commander hiding in his office. He was a Kronth officer named Torvak. He had overseen 6 months of child labor. He had given orders to beat children who worked too slowly. Una stood in his doorway. Torvak raised his hands. "I surrender," he said quickly. "I am a prisoner of war. I have rights." Una looked at him for a long time. Then she spoke into her communication device. "Admiral Park, I have the commander of the children's camp. He is requesting prisoner rights." Admiral Doan Park's voice came back calm and clear. "Take him. He will face tribunal. We are not monsters, but make sure he understands what he did." Una nodded. She stepped aside as soldiers entered to arrest Torvak. As they dragged him away, she spoke one last time. "Those children will carry scars for the rest of their lives. When you stand before judgment, remember their faces. All 47 of them." The rescue operations across Krantz space took 12 hours. Every human prisoner was found. Every camp was emptied. Thousands of people who had been slaves were now free. But humanity was not finished. Dr. Minho watched from Earth as reports came in. The new weapons were working perfectly. Too perfectly in some ways. One device in particular worried him. They called it the Unmaker. It worked by disrupting molecular bonds. When activated, it caused matter to simply fall apart. Ships did not explode. They collapsed into dust. Buildings did not burn. They crumbled into nothing. The Kronth flagship Devastator was the largest warship in their fleet. It had destroyed countless enemies. It had never been defeated. The Unmaker reduced it to atoms in 3 seconds. Minho designed the weapon hoping it would never be used. Now he watched footage of it working and felt sick. This was not science to help people. This was science to end them. He reminded himself of the children in the mines. He thought of the recordings Hannah had brought back. He remembered why they were fighting, but he promised himself that when this was over, some weapons would be locked away forever. Admiral Doan Park broadcast his message to every screen in the galaxy. His face appeared on stations and ships and planets across all 12 Concord species. His voice was calm, almost gentle. There was no anger in his tone. Somehow, that made it more frightening. "You took our children," he said. "You laughed while they screamed. You thought our silence was surrender? It was preparation. For 6 months, we watched. We planned, built, and now we have come to take back what is ours." He paused and looked directly at the camera. "This is not a war. Wars have rules. Wars have negotiations. Wars can end in compromise. This is a lesson, and lessons end only when the teacher decides the student has learned." High Arbiter Velos watched the broadcast in shock. He immediately called for an emergency Concord meeting. But before representatives could gather, reports flooded in from every direction. Kronth military capability had been reduced by 40% in 6 hours. Their communication networks were destroyed. Their supply lines were cut. Their leaders were captured or dead. The humans had not declared war. They had simply started ending one, and they were not finished. 2 weeks after the first attacks, the Kronth Empire was falling apart. Warlord Grath stood in his command center and watched the reports come in. Every screen showed disaster. His fleets were scattered or destroyed. His generals were captured or missing. His planets were surrounded by human ships that appeared and vanished like nightmares. For the first time in his long life, Grath felt fear. How is this possible? He demanded. They were weak. They were nothing. We crushed them easily. His advisors had no answer. The humans they had captured 6 months ago were ordinary people. Scientists, families, children, none of them were soldiers. That was why the Kronth had attacked. Easy targets. What came back for them was something else entirely. General Tai Wu-shin led the ground campaigns personally. His soldiers had trained for months in secret bases. They had studied every terrain, every tactic, every possible situation. Now they put that training to use. Kronth soldiers were bigger and stronger than humans. In a fair fight, one-on-one, they would win. But humans did not fight fair. They attacked at night when Kronthais worked poorly. They used weapons that made no sound and left no trace. They hacked communication systems, so Kronth commanders gave orders to soldiers who had already been captured. They spread confusion and fear. The Kronth were warriors. They understood battles where 2 armies faced each other and the stronger side won. They did not understand enemies who were everywhere and nowhere. They did not know how to fight shadows. General Tai Wu captured a Kronth military base on the planet Krothfor. It was supposed to be impossible. The base had 10,000 soldiers, heavy weapons, and strong walls. Tai Wu took it with 300 humans and no casualties. First, they cut the power. Then they disabled the communication towers. Then they filled the base with smoke that blinded Kronth eyes but did not affect human equipment. Finally, they broadcast the sounds of fighting from every direction at once, making the defenders think they were surrounded by thousands. When the Kronth soldiers finally surrendered, they expected to be killed. Warriors who lost were supposed to die. That was the Kronth way. Instead, humans gave them food, medical treatment, and fair trials. "We are not here to destroy your people," Tai Wu told the captured commander. "We are here to stop those who hurt our people. Ordinary soldiers who followed orders will be released when this is over. Those who committed crimes against prisoners will face justice." The commander stared at him in confusion. This was not how enemies behaved across the galaxy. Other species watched in horror and fascination. High Arbiter Velos called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Concord. He demanded that all species send their fleets to help the Kronth. Humanity must be stopped, he insisted. If the humans could do this to the Kronth, they could do it to anyone. But the votes did not go as he expected. The Valari were first to refuse. Ambassador Tira stood before the assembly, her silver skin shining under the lights. "The Valari will not fight," she announced. "We warned against attacking the humans. We were ignored. We warned that the Kronth action was wrong. We were silenced. Now you expect us to die for your mistake?" No, other species followed. The Methali, who were traitors, said they had no military to send. The Korathi, who were scientists, said violence was against their beliefs. Even the Fenric, who were warriors almost as fierce as the Kronth, refused to fight. "The humans are not attacking us," the Fenric ambassador said. "They are attacking only those who harmed them." We did not laugh in the assembly. We did not applaud when they were humiliated. Why should we die for the Kronth's stupidity? Velos grew desperate. They will come for all of us eventually. This is our chance to stop them together. Lieutenant Hanacho's voice suddenly filled the assembly hall. No one knew how she had accessed their communication system, but there she was, on every screen. "High Arbiter Velos is lying," she said calmly. "Humanity has no interest in conquering the galaxy. We never wanted power. We only wanted respect." She pressed a button, and recordings began to play. Videos of every Concord meeting for the past 60 years. Every insult to human diplomats. every unfair trade deal, every vote to deny humans basic rights. And finally, the footage of Velos laughing while children screamed. We know who laughed and who stayed silent, Hannah continued. We have recordings of everything, every reaction, every face. Those who showed basic decency have nothing to fear from humanity, but those who enjoyed our suffering. We remember. The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, several species quietly contacted human representatives. They offered apologies. They promised support. They begged not to be remembered as enemies. Hannah's response was the same each time. Actions matter more than words. Show us who you truly are, Ambassador Tira went further. She formally withdrew the Valari from the Galactic Concord entirely. In a public broadcast, she condemned the attack on humanity and called for a new galactic order based on equality and respect. Within days, 5 other species followed her out of the Concord. The alliance that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years was breaking apart. Warlord Grath watched his empire collapse. His advisors were gone. His fleets were destroyed. Human ships surrounded his homeworld. There was no escape. He made one final broadcast appearing on screens across the galaxy. I surrender, he said. The words tasted like poison in his mouth. I, Warlord Grath, Supreme Commander of the Kronth Empire, surrender to humanity. I request mercy and fair treatment under galactic law. Admiral Doan Park appeared on a split screen beside him. The human's face was calm. His voice was quiet. You captured our diplomats under a flag of peace, Doan said. You enslaved our civilians. You put our children in mines. When they fell from exhaustion, your guards beat them. You broadcast their suffering for entertainment. Groth nodded slowly. I did these things. I admit it. But warriors surrender. Warriors accept defeat. That is our way, your way, Dohan repeated. He was silent for a moment. Soldiers who follow orders can surrender. Soldiers who commit crimes can face trials. But you, Warlord Grath, gave the orders? You laughed as our children screamed. You spat at my officers' feet and called us weak things to be disciplined. I made a mistake, Grath said quickly. I did not understand, please. I am asking for mercy. Dewan looked at him with eyes that held no warmth. You had 6 months to show mercy to our children. You chose cruelty instead. Now you ask for what you refuse to give. He leaned forward slightly. We do not accept your surrender. The broadcast cut to static. What happened to Warlord Grath became a mystery. Some said he was captured and executed. Some said he was left alone on a destroyed ship to die slowly. Some said he was still alive somewhere, waiting for a trial that might never come. The truth was never revealed. And that uncertainty was part of the lesson. High Arbiter Velos fled the Concord station in the night. He took a small ship and ran for deep space, hoping to disappear. 3 days later, humans found him. They brought him back to stand trial for his role in Enko. You're rigging the attack. He would spend the rest of his life in prison. Watching recordings of his own words played in courtrooms across the galaxy, the Galactic Concord was finished. 10,000 years of arrogant rule had ended in weeks. Not through conquest, but through fear and fracture, and through it all. Humanity continued to rescue prisoners, rebuild what was damaged, and prepare for what came next. The lesson was almost complete. 1 year after the attack on the diplomatic shuttle, the galaxy had become a different place. The Kronth Empire still existed, but it was not the same. Their military was gone. Their warlords were dead or imprisoned. What remained was a species struggling to rebuild without the tools of conquest they had relied on. For centuries, humanity did not destroy them. That had never been the goal. Admiral Doan Park personally oversaw the reconstruction programs. Human engineers helped build new power stations. Human doctors treated wounds and diseases. Human teachers came to Kronth. Worlds to help children who had never learned anything except fighting. Many Kronth did not understand. They expected to be slaves. They expected revenge. Instead, humans offered help. Why? A young Kronth asked a human aid worker one day. We hurt your people. We took your children. Why do you not hate us? The aid worker, a woman named Jisoo, smiled sadly. Most of you were not there when the decision was made. Most of you never hurt anyone. You were soldiers following orders, or civilians who had no power. We do not punish innocent people for the crimes of their leaders. But we are Kronth. We are warriors. We would take revenge. Jisoo nodded. That is why you lost. You could not imagine that someone stronger might choose mercy. That was your greatest weakness. Young Kronth thought about this for a long time. High Arbiter Velos stood trial on the Concord station he had once ruled. He faced thousands of charges: inciting violence, enabling slavery, denying basic rights to a member species, ignoring cries for help while children were taken. He tried to defend himself. He said he was following tradition. He said humans were unknown and potentially dangerous. He said the Concord had always treated young species this way. The evidence destroyed every argument. 60 years of recordings showed humanity being peaceful, cooperative, and helpful. It showed Velos repeatedly blocking their advancement. It showed him laughing at their suffering. He was found guilty on all charges. His sentence was unusual. He would not be executed. He would not be imprisoned in darkness. Instead, he was sent to a human medical facility, where he would spend his remaining years helping test treatments for diseases. His work would save millions of lives across the galaxy. You spent 10,000 years making others suffer, the judge told him. Now, you will spend your last years helping them heal. That is human justice. Velos wept. He had expected death. He had not expected this. The Galactic Concord dissolved completely. In its place, a new organization formed. It was called the Alliance of Equals. Ambassador Terra of the Valari led the founding council. Every species has one vote, she announced at the first meeting. Every species has equal rights. No one will be called primitive or lesser. No one will be denied a voice. Humanity did not demand leadership. They did not ask for special treatment. They took one seat on the council, the same as every other species, but everyone knew the truth. When humanity spoke, others listened. Not because humans forced them to, because they had earned respect the hard way. Captain Unikong retired from active duty. She had done enough fighting. She had seen enough death. Instead, she became the commander of a new academy where young humans trained to be diplomats and peacekeepers. One day, a young student asked her about the war. What was it like? The boy asked. Fighting the crone, taking back the prisoners. Were you scared? Una thought about the question for a long time. I was terrified, she admitted. Every moment, I was afraid we would fail. Afraid we would lose people. Afraid of what we had become. What do you mean? She looked at him with old, tired eyes. We were peaceful for centuries. We built hospitals and schools. We cured diseases and grew food. Then they hurt our children and we became something else. Something terrible. I am proud of what we achieved. I am glad we saved our people. But I never want to be that again. The boy nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand. Strength was not something to celebrate. It was something to fear, even in yourself. Dr. Minho-Beak returned to his laboratory. He locked away the Unmaker and the other terrible weapons his team had created. The files were encrypted and hidden. Only a handful of people knew where they were. We should destroy them, one of his colleagues suggested. Make sure they can never be used again. Minho shook his head. We cannot. If another threat comes, we may need them. But we will keep them secret, and we will pray we never have reason to unlock them. He went back to his original work. Medical research. Disease cures. Technologies to help crops grow on dying worlds. Science for healing, not hurting. But sometimes, late at night, he dreamed of ships collapsing into dust, and he woke up afraid of himself. Lieutenant Hannah Cho became the director of Earth's intelligence service. She spent her days analyzing data from across the galaxy, watching for threats, maintaining the network of agents she had built during the dark months. She never forgot the faces of the guards who had beaten the children. Every single one was found. Every single one faced justice. Some received prison sentences. Some were forced into labor programs. A few, the worst ones, disappeared entirely. Hannah never spoke about what happened to them. When asked if she had regrets, she always gave the same answer. I regret that we did not act sooner. I regret that children suffered while we prepared. Everything else was necessary. General Tai Wuxin stayed in the military. He led humanitarian missions now, bringing food and supplies to worlds damaged by the conflict. His soldiers, who had learned to fight in shadows, now learned to build in sunlight. It is harder, he admitted to a reporter. Fighting is simple. You find the enemy. You defeat them. Helping is complicated. You have to understand what people need. You have to be patient. You have to work with people who might hate you. Do the Kronth hate you? Taiwu smiled. Some do, but their children do not. We are teaching their children that there is more to life than war. In a generation, maybe two, the Kronth will be different. That is victory. On Earth, a memorial was built for those who died in the initial attack. The 47 children who had survived placed flowers at its base every year on the anniversary. They were growing up now. Some had become doctors. Some had become teachers. One was training to be a diplomat. The inscription on the memorial was simple. They thought our kindness was weakness. They taught us otherwise. We will not forget. 20 years later, Admiral Doan Park was an old man. His hair was white. His steps were slow, but his mind was still sharp, and his reputation stretched across the galaxy. A new species had discovered faster than light travel. They were called the Mythiki. They were small and nervous, with large eyes and soft fur. They had heard stories about humanity and the war that had reshaped galactic civilization. A delegation came to Earth to meet the famous admiral. We are afraid, the lead Mythiki admitted. The galaxy tells stories about what humanity did to the Kronoth. They say you are dangerous. They say you are killers. Doan smiled warmly. He poured them tea from a ceramic pot and offered them small cookies his granddaughter had baked. Humanity is peaceful, he said. We help those in need. We trade fairly. We build friendships. We are slow to anger and quick to forgive. The Mythiki relaxed slightly. This gentle old man did not seem like the monster from the stories. Then Doan set down his teacup. His eyes hardened for just a moment. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. But if you ever harm our children, he said quietly, our innocent, are defenseless. There is no corner of this universe dark enough to hide you from what follows.
Oh.
The Mythiki swallowed nervously. Now they understood. The stories were not exaggerations. This gentle grandfather had destroyed an empire because someone hurt his people. He would do it again without hesitation. Then Doan's smile returned, warm and grandfatherly. But you seem like good people, he said cheerfully. Welcome to the galaxy. Let me tell you about our medical programs. We have treatments that could help millions of your people. We share them freely. No cost, no conditions. That is who we are. He stood and walked them to the window. Outside, ships lifted off carrying supplies to distant worlds. Children played in a garden below. The sun was setting over a peaceful city. We want friends, not subjects, Doan said. We want partners, not servants. Join us, and we will help you become everything you can be. Threaten us, and you will learn what the Kronth learned. He turned to them with that gentle smile. So, which will you choose? The Mythiki delegation looked at each other. Then they bowed low before the old admiral. Friendship, they said. We choose friendship. Doan nodded happily. Excellent choice, but come. Let me introduce you to my granddaughter. She baked these cookies, you know. She is studying to be a diplomat. Perhaps someday she will visit your world. As the sun set over Earth, the old admiral walked with new friends into a future his people had earned through blood, sacrifice, and the hard lesson they had taught the galaxy: never provoke humanity. They are slow to anger, but when they move, worlds fall.